Well, good morning and welcome to Talking Point here on WESN Content Capital. My name is Keaton Shaw.
And I'm Sean Michael Small. And this is HD, Keaton. This is HD. It's important that people understand that.
Could you see my dark circles any darker?
Actually, I could see it with more definition in the monitor.
That's not very good. We'll have to fix that. You will forgive my voice this morning, actually. Last night I was watching the Trinidad and Tobago versus Nicaragua game and...
I heard it did not...
No, it didn't end in favor of TNT.
It didn't end in favor.
We actually needed to win the game in order to be promoted to League A of the CONCACAF and then automatic qualification to the CONCACAF Gold Cup. Nicaragua needed a draw. Now, be very honest with you, Trinidad and Tobago has been playing very good football. I'm quite impressed. Even our fitness levels seem to be a lot better. And going into this match, we were feeling very confident. Nicaragua scored first. I said, oh, crikey, what's going to happen here? But we pulled one back via penalty. We played very good football, actually. Still a lot of improvement to make. But my criticisms are a few, but probably raise it another time. And extra time went on for about 7 minutes. And in the very final minute of the game, Trinidad and Tobago scored. The very final minute of the game.
Well, that was where because it was tied, right? It was 1-1.
Yeah.
It was the final.
So winning the game means we're going through to League A. We're going to, to the Gold Cup. Automatic qualification. So 10 o'clock in the night, when we scored, I'm shouting at the top of my voice, I'm clapping, I'm screaming, my voice starts to go, and then all of a sudden you see the referee raising a yellow card towards the goal scorer because he handled the ball before kicking it into the goal.
And really?
That is. It was a field ball actually, and he trapped it right here actually. Right here. But because his arm was in an unnatural position, it was an unnatural position, I have to say it was a fair call. But boy, was that disappointing.
Just short of hand of God.
That was very far from hand of God. But anyway, you know what? Well done, TNT. We hope better for next time. Anyway, let's get into your daily review. Well, interesting developments, and I must admit I wasn't expecting it. I've been expecting a reshuffle of the THA secretaries for quite some time, and maybe they'll come following the news we received yesterday that the THA executive will be launching their new political party today.
4th of April.
Next week.
I actually thought it was today as well, but this is actually, I'm surprised it took so long because initially, after the breakaway, so there was a whole hullabaloo about, well, we didn't vote independence in and blah, 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 blah. Although technically, the act that governs the THA allows for that. It's fine. You don't actually need a political party structure for the THA to function. And to be fair, it's not as though the chief secretary went independent and everybody went their own way, because then I would understand when some of the people, some of the Tobagonians were saying, we didn't vote independent, because they technically weren't independent. They all stayed together. They just needed some time to retool their political identity. I would say with good reason. They did say January. Now it's the beginning of April that end of March, beginning of April, that we're hearing the first real news. At least those of us, or maybe half of Tobago knew about this, was a long time coming. And it's interesting. There's a flyer. I don't know if Mass Control has it, because the implications of the flyer is that we will soon have a orange party in the nation.
No, we already actually have an orange party in the nation. That's the PEP. Not the PDP, the PEP.
Okay, we will soon have an active and functioning orange party.
According to the PEP, they are active and functioning. So, you know, we look forward to what comes out of that. That'll be very interesting, actually, given the two
I
parties.
mean, that's the assumption. We don't know. We don't
No,
know what they're going to end up with.
actually,
They might have used orange as a neutral color.
No, it hints towards it. I think my issue is, and I'm not clear the THA Act as it relates to this. I know that there was no issue with respect to them ruling as independents. But now that they're forming a new political party, whether or not that would actually lead to an election within the THA.
No.
And the reason why I'm stating that is because, think about it from this angle, because there are very many angles you can analyze this from. They actually won the election under the umbrella of the PDP, right? We understand that they won the election under the umbrella of the PDP.
Right.
Now, following the entire fallout with Watson Duke and the separation, the annexation of the executive from the Progressive Democratic Patriots, there was an entire uproar as to whether or not an election should be called. Now, because the THA Act allows for them to govern as independents, that was fine. But now that you're falling under a new umbrella, it's the same executive, the same people, the same individuals, all right? But if it falls under a different umbrella, it's a different branding.
You see, if it was if it was a case where the THA was fractured, fine. The thing is, at the end of the day, legally speaking, nobody voted in the PDP. Nobody voted in the PNM. They voted, technically, for the individuals who wore the red or the green. So, on a legal footing, as far as I understand it, it honestly does not matter. None of this matters with regards to when the next THA election goes, especially since if Watson Duke was the chief secretary, right, and it was people underneath him, then maybe, because, ironically, one would argue that they would, or at the very least, they would want to reappoint or revote for the chief secretary position because the majority, you know, he no longer has the majority. But the majority went with Farley unanimously. We're talking...
Okay, and I understand that, but you just said yourself, they voted for the individual that fell under the green or the red. Now...
On an individual basis, the THA does not recognize what color jersey the person was wearing.
We're not speaking about the THA, we're talking about the people of Tobago, because I'm not going to argue what...
I understand that, but at the end of the day, you have to have a legal lever to pull, and as far as I'm aware, there is none. There is literally no legal reason, despite the people will have the sentiment and informally, technically voted in a political party.
Okay, so...
It's not recognized.
I understand what you are saying, and again, I am not entirely clear about the act, and I don't mind being educated about it in the sense that if independents could run, could these individuals who are transitioning from independent to a new political party be at the helm? That is what I'm questioning. But you're right from the aspect that the legal standing and the legal clauses, that'll be an argument for the People's National Movement Tobago Council.
The other thing is, ultimately speaking, it's not as though Watson Duke and the PDP, one cannot reasonably argue Watson Duke and the PDP was the reason why these people got where they were. Because it was 6-6, and then they had to put Farley in front. And Faith Bay Israel and a lot of other people did a lot of upfront, you know, forward-facing work to get their slate elected. And it is the entire slate that left. Not even one individual stayed behind.
So let's look at it from this angle. If these individuals who are part of the THA executive ran as independents and not under the umbrella of the PDP, right? I'm looking at it from that angle. Would they have actually won the election? Because you're saying it wasn't under the PDP, it wasn't Watson Duke, but if they ran as independents and not under the umbrella...
No, but you see, that's not the fair comparison. The fair comparison is if they ran under their own political entity, because they won't... We call them independents because they don't have a party. But an independent generally means I am on my own. At no point did they branch off on their own. They stayed as a collective group together, right? So for all intents and purposes, when they left the PDP, it's probably more accurate to say they're operating with a party that doesn't have a name yet. Because that was always the intention when we start. What is a party? A group of politicians. They were a group of politicians. Farley or Faith or Trevor James never went on their own.
A party has a set structure. Parties are set organizations. So you're making an argument based upon what we've seen from plain view. Can I blame you for making that argument? No, but I think you're a lot smarter than that. And that is why I'm saying that if you're falling under a new umbrella, if they would have ran as independents before and not under the umbrella of the PDP, I'm not entirely sure what the outcome of the election is. And I'm not speaking
about... but
yes,
that
let me
is
finish, Sean.
That
I'm
is
not
not
speaking,
a fair comparison
I'm not
to
speaking,
say independent if they were running as independents.
And I'm not necessarily speaking as what we might argue from a logical standpoint, but I'm also including in that argument how Trinidad and Tobago votes, how Trinidad and Tobago thinks, and we're focusing solely on Tobago. The issue for me is now, I'm not saying that, and I hope you don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I am not saying that an election should be called. My questioning and my thinking is, it is possibly good political mileage for the People's National Movement, and let's take a look at the arguments. Because given right now the fact that Tobagonians are feeling, let's just say, very dissatisfied, displeased, and unhappy, and I'm not going to go back on my arguments that I've made before, that if you can give the PNM 20 years, you know, 1 year, just over 1 year under this administration, be a bit more patient. I'm not going to go back on that. But the mere fact is, it is actually beneficial for the PNM Tobago Council now to make strong arguments in favor of pushing for an election. And I bet you they are going to do that. There's no doubt about it. The thing is, do I think they have good arguments? Possibly. I'd like to see what they come with.
At the end of the day, you cannot ask the question, right? Because they're not operating as independents. So you cannot say, could they have won as independents?
But technically right now they are, but they have labeled themselves as independents.
Yes, I understand that, and that's a mistake, because again, what is an independent candidate? A candidate that, yes, has no party, but generally speaking, is a candidate who is not a part of the majority of whichever body they're going up for elections for.
An independent is an individual who doesn't fall under any political umbrella.
I understand that, but on a practical level, they did not move, they're not moving as independents. Right?
Sean, they refer to themselves...
I know they refer to themselves as independents, but on a practical level, they're not acting like independents. Right? What you have to... And again, you're saying, so they're calling a new party. Should we ask the question, would they have been elected if they were independents? No, what we should have asked is, would they have been elected if they were under a different party than the PDP?
And there was a
if
high
they brought
chance
their
that
own
wasn't
party.
the case.
One could say that. However, the flip side to that is, would have the PDP have gotten elected without them? And there's a high chance that is not the case, because most of the work, from what I have seen, or at least I have the impression, a lot of the work that got the PDP going from, okay, you're a party that people will vote for, to you're a party that will win the election, was not due to the chairman and Watson Duke and a few other people. It was due to the people that eventually were elected in the various districts in Tobago.
Using that logic, I can also ask a question, and there are many questions you could ask to any debate. Using that logic that you've just put forward, one will ask, and I'm pretty sure that we've asked this before, given all the developments over the last couple of months, that whether or not, given the work done by Watson Duke prior to the elections in 2020 and 2021, whether or not this executive, if they fell under a PDP without Watson Duke, whether or not they would have won without the push that Watson Duke had given them.
It's hard to divorce Watson Duke to the origin of the PDP, so it's a fair question. But the flip side is, at some point, I don't think any political analyst is going to say, oh yeah, Watson Duke is the majority responsibility there in that equation. It's just not happening. It's just not.
I think...
Right? So then now, what I would say is, it probably would have taken people like Farley and the rest of the executive longer, right? And what makes it realistic is the fact that there's no challenger to the number 2 spot. So the road was, if you take out Watson Duke and the PDP, the road was open for any number 2, right? And Duke got lucky because he was able to surround himself with people that not only the common man will appreciate, but serious political thinkers will take seriously as well. But he himself does not have the cachet to carry a party.
If we are to give flowers where the flowers are due, similar sentiments expressed when the Prime Minister announced this Dragon Gas deal. Well, there's no deal in place, but the granting of the license, right? If we are to give flowers where flowers are due, you just said it. It probably would have taken them a lot longer. They pushed that Watson Duke and the strides that he made. I'll give him credit for that. Very, very few things, probably one or two, that I'll give Watson Duke credit for. And that's one thing you could give him credit for. The push that he made in the few years that he formed the PDP.
But he wasn't alone with that push, right? Before the last series of elections that went 6-6 and then 14-1, the other member of the PDP that was elected was Farley Augustine. So it's not as though Duke was the lone seat in the THA for years until he, he finally got people to have trust in him.
Yes, but before that, even before that 6-6, Watson Duke arguably was the only voice of an opposition in the Tobago.
And a broken clock is right twice a day.
So, Sean. Anyway, it's as I said, this is the thing with these arguments and these debates. There's so many questions that you can ask, and there's so many angles you can examine it from. It's really up to you at the end of the day. But we do have differing opinions on quite a few things.
So we do have other stories. We don't have time to go into them in detail. Just to mention them, first of all, the state has decided to challenge the $20 million settlement award.
Why?
And I just, I don't even know if to wish them well. I don't know.
No, wish them well.
Should I? I mean, to some extent, I don't necessarily have a problem with the men getting the award if they deserve it. It seems as though they deserve some kind of award.
Listen,
it is state money, so I don't know who I should be backing here in this one. I just find the process is silly. We don't have time to get into it.
I need 1 minute to comment on this.
No, you have 10 seconds.
I will take 15. The thing is, for me, is that the states, I wish them luck. Because $20 million, these individuals deserve nothing. I don't want to fork out $20 million to pay these individuals for the stakes wrongdoing. The issue for me is, with the excuse that they've given and the default judgment, if there is any opportunity to try and recoup this $20 million, great, I'll go for it. But though I'm no legal expert, I cannot see any reasonable argument following a default judgment because the case files were missing.
I'll just say that whether they're guilty or innocent for the murder, that's besides the point. That is a different matter. This now is a precedent that has other impactful down-the-line considerations with regards to how the state treats those who are accused but not proven to be guilty. And that's why I'm not necessarily automatically saying, let's get the money back. Last thing, forest fires is an issue. There are average of 700 house fires annually, 2 house fires a day. I think even actually after selecting that story, there was, or selecting that, story to speak about this morning, there was a story of another house fire situation. So how is it? I just find there's a lot of arson in the news. I'm not accustomed to this level of people just losing their homes. I did not know that there were 2 fires per day, 700 annually. And there's concerns that there's not enough tenders to deal with all these fires.
How is it that I get 15 seconds and he gets 2 minutes?
You actually took...
Lord boy, let's take a break now. Let's take a break.
Bill and Ruth fell in love with the Benjamin Moore color Dry Sage, but they tried to match it using another brand's paint.
I mean, it's close enough.
Almost identical, really. Yeah, there it is.
Never trust another paint to be a Benjamin Moore color.
Trinidad, come and get blessed at the Good News Fest. Free groceries while stocks last and lots of giveaways like appliances and toys and much more with live music at each venue. 3 days only in South, March 30th at number 4 Recreation Ground, Palo Seco from 4 p.m. In Central, March 31st at Ancient Alley Promenade, Couva, 6 p.m. And in the East, April 1st, Macoya, Savannah, Macoya, 6 p.m. It's the Good News Fest, 3-day family event, March 30th to April 1st. Lots of giveaways after an encouraging word shared.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the red, white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378 or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
Welcome back to Talking Point, ladies and gentlemen. And yesterday, Minister of Finance, he had a virtual media conference, basically to weigh in or to answer some of the commentary that has been going around the media and the national discussion with regards to the IMF's statement that had some good news, and there were some takeaways that some people viewed as negative, and the minister was looking to refute some of the negative perspectives, so to speak. Now, unfortunately, the conference did have some audio issues, so there were quite a few important parts that I actually really wanted to listen to, that the audio it made it somewhat difficult to make out what the minister was saying. However, there was one point that he did make that I think warrants further discussion. So, to hear that, of course, why don't you check out, cue this.
I saw commentators make heavy weather of this one, that the balance of risks to growth is tilted to the downside. But if one reads the narrative, it has very little to do with us in Trinidad and Tobago, because it speaks to a sharper than expected global slowdown, which will affect energy markets and global financial instabilities. And the IMF wrote this before you had the problem with Credit Suisse, for example. So that these are things that are outside of our control as a country. A global slowdown, the price of oil and gas, and problems in the international financial markets. We can't control that at all. But on the upside, there's potential for higher than expected energy production and prices, including from a new US license to Trinidad and Tobago to develop a major gas field in Venezuela. So the downside risks they're talking about are the risks outside of our control, and we will do whatever we can within our control. I've made it crystal clear before that when you go into the economic fundamentals, if you look very closely at the data from the Central Statistical Office, and if you even go and look at what the IMF is saying, that the outturn in fiscal 2022 was not only due to enhanced oil and gas prices, and in fact, the non-oil sector rebounded much better than the energy sector, so that our success last year was due from two sources. Of course, the unexpectedly high prices of oil and gas helped to boost the coffers in the treasury. Of course, that goes without saying. But when you dig into the numbers and you see the growth in the non-oil sector, you see the growth in exports, non-energy exports, averaging 20% in fiscal 2022, it is not correct to say that when things went well last year, it was because of external factors. It was not. It was a combination of external factors and internal factors. And in fact, I am very encouraged by what I'm seeing in the data coming out from the CSO. When I look at industry by industry, I'm very encouraged because I'm seeing that our economy has rebounded from the ravages of COVID. I'm seeing that our manufacturing sector has taken up the challenge and is growing at a tremendous rate. I'm seeing that exports in the non-energy sector are growing, and therefore our diversification strategies are working. With respect to the second part, and I always find it interesting the way the media puts things across. When something is bad, they say so-and-so said. When something is good, they say the minister boasted or he thumped his chest, as you said. We simply state facts. When they're bad, they're bad. When they're good, they're good. We don't boast. But I mean, that seems to be a word that is used frequently by the media to kind of discredit good news. Let me go to the second point. Yes, we have some issues in terms of revenue. I will account to the country at the time of the mid-year review. Yes, I have some concerns about revenue targets and so on. Obviously, we can all read, we all see the international press and so on. We get data all the time on a daily basis in terms of the price of WTI, the price of Brent, the price of natural gas. But I want to make a point, and I've made it before, that Trinidad and Tobago benefits from a revised formula for revenue from the natural gas sector in particular, where the prices that we get for tax and revenue purposes are not based simply on Henry Hub. They are now based on three benchmarks. The Henry Hub is the United States benchmark, the NBP, which is the British natural gas benchmark, and the JKM, which is the Japan-Korea benchmark. And if one goes and checks, while you may see Henry Hub at $2, you might see NBP at $15 and JKM at $16, so that the net back prices that we get for gas are not based on Henry Hub. So when I speak in the budget, my figure that I give of $6 is a net back price. So we also have a different formula for LNG net back gas prices and a different one for petrochemical net back prices. The petrochemical net back price is based on the prices of the commodities, the price of ammonia, the price of methanol, the price of urea, etc. So as these prices are high, we get a high net back price for revenue purposes from the petrochemical sector. And as the JKM and the NBP prices continue to be elevated, it is helping us tremendously in terms of dealing with the issues with respect to the extremely low and unanticipated Henry Hub price. And I can tell you that for the first 4 years of the fiscal, the net back price for gas was above the budget estimates. As we move in now to the latter part of the fiscal, it's coming a little below. So the average for the last 6 months or so is turning out to be close to the budget estimates for gas. Oil, of course, is lower than before. And as the IMF has said, we make adjustments, we are prudent, we are careful, we are sensible, and we will manage accordingly.
So that, of course, was our Minister of Finance, Colm Imbert. he made a very interesting point to start. And that's why I picked those clips specifically. Basically, he was saying, well, the risk is external. So what he doesn't give is the context of why would we be fine even if the bad external things continue to happen or worsen. He's just saying, well, look, all of the risk is external, we don't have control of it, so let's just keep doing. That's the impression I got from the first set of statements in that clip that he made. And I found it interesting because, to me, it's not about blame. We're not going to blame you because something happened, act of God, or some other jurisdiction did something crazy. Russia goes to war with Ukraine and everything goes down the drain. Fine. We know it's not your fault. But the propensity of bad things happening, you get insurance for a reason. Right? So it's almost sounds as though, like, you don't explain to us what is the plan to balance off these external risks that aren't your fault, but it could still affect us. And that's what it comes down to. It's not about blame. External risk will happen regardless of who's to blame. They're going to hit us. They're going to hit us hard. They already hit us hard for the last 3 years. How are we going to deal with it? What is the safety net? What is the plan if something else unexpected happens? And that's what I don't get.
I always take with a pinch of salt what the Minister of Finance suggests when he's sitting in those press conferences. I mean, he made it very clear his thoughts about the media. So I will try to ease his mind this morning. It's simple. You cannot blame him for external factors or acts of God. But what you can blame him for is, as Minister of Finance, his planning, his measures, his implementation, his strategies. When he mentioned that the diversification initiatives are working, my first question was, what diversification factors? Because I'm not aware of any diversification factors, so I'm not seeing it. You mentioned the manufacturing sector here in TNT, for example. You said you're very confident with what you're seeing and the growth. Unfortunately, Minister of Finance, even though you're feeling very confident and you seem to be very satisfied, it's not trickling down. So we're not feeling it. We may not share that confidence with you. Because an economy works, the way the economy works, it's not going to just happen overnight. But at the same time, you're saying that we've come out of the COVID-19 pandemic. You mean we've come out of the COVID-19 lockdowns with great strides. Again, we're still not feeling it down on the ground. So I'm not entirely sure what you're expressing. Furthermore, he mentioned devaluation, and he seemed to focus a lot on devaluation yesterday. And
well,
I know
there was a direct question.
Yes, and I'm glad that he raised that, because it's going to be a debate that will go on for many years, because according to the Minister of Finance, they're not under any IMF program. Because they're not under any IMF program, they don't have to subscribe to any of the recommendations. And under this regime, it's highly unlikely that they'll ever be under any IMF program. Specifically devaluation, I can't wait for this conversation with Karen tomorrow, because there are benefits to devaluation. The cons, though, the cons to devaluation is actually going to open the nation's eyes to exactly where we're at as an economy and how bad things actually are. Because Minister of Finance, I don't think he truly understands what we're feeling.
I find it interesting in both instances, right? Because to some extent, he wants to say, well, the recovery was not just because of the increase in oil and gas prices. But you were very happy last year to announce the budget surplus of $1 billion, of which, on a practical level, I don't think really exists when you put all of their debts in comparison to revenue. So why is it now? Okay, then you took the external factors to get praise or to say things are going well. well, external factors, you have to take it when things are going bad because you have to account for it. You have to have a plan for it. Flip side now with the IMF. You started off saying, oh, this report was so good. Look at this report. Good praise. Well, a lot of good things happening, and the IMF is recognizing all the good things that we're doing. But yet, if their positive remarks are so valuable, why is it so important that we not be under IMF recommendations? That we don't follow the IMF's recommendations? Right? So we pick and choose what we want to say. Oh, what they said here is important. But what they said here is not important. And that's the thing. At the very least, I could understand that it's not that simple. But you need to explain properly why you could have it both ways and not just leave it there for the public to accept. Because they're not going to accept it. Rum shop talk, they're not going to accept it.
But the thing is, as well, there's been this stigma, at least here in TNT, that has been created about the IMF. And because of that lack of education, the Minister of Finance has used that to his political favor. I agree with you. Don't pick and choose. And that's what we always get. It's not just now, it's what we always get. And the issue for me is you don't have to be under an IMF program in order to subscribe to any of the recommendations. You can still implement recommendations without being in a program. And that is why I want to focus on devaluation more, and I'll do so tomorrow. Because the thing is for me, if we were to devalue our currency, it's going to make purchasing power for citizens a lot more difficult. Because they might not go for the more expensive imported good. They might actually go for the cheaper local good, which also will affect many of the businesses here in Trinidad and Tobago that depend on foreign imports in order to survive.
It will be a hard transition because we won't be ready for it, and we'll never be ready for it just based on how our markets move, our businesses, where our capital is spent, and how the ease of doing business, government regulations, etc., is set up. There's no initiatives for it. I agree with you. When he said the plans for diversification or effects of diversification, when he mentioned diversification, I myself pulled out my binoculars and started to search where. Because I don't actually see any major initiatives pointing down that path. So I understand, but it's which comes first, the chicken or the egg? Do we devalue the dollar to then get our local manufacturing up to snuff, or do we get our local manufacturing up to snuff to be prepared if the dollar gets devalued? It's not that simple, but his explanations to me are just fall short of giving anything satisfactory.
You just basically answered why it is that they would not look to devalue the dollar.
Exactly.
You just basically answered it.
Because we're not ready to devalue the dollar.
Yes. And if we, as I said, if we devalued the dollar to a certain extent, and remember, I'm not saying that we should, but this is how we've made an argument against, via the Minister of Finance, we should also understand the pros to devaluing. We should give you all sides so you have an understanding. Thing is, if we were to devalue, it will benefit the citizens a lot. Purchasing power, salaries, and savings might actually, it will become less actually. But on the flip side, the biggest cons would be for the bigger businessmen in TNT who somehow or the other getting enough foreign exchanges to open up different franchises, but also the importation of food will become more expensive, and therefore local products will seem a lot cheaper. It'll also help us in terms of our debt repayments and the cost of our exports to be more competitive on the international market. But we'll get more into that later on. Let's take a break here on Talking Points. When we return, well, we'll welcome our guest this morning. Stay tuned.
Trinidad, come and get blessed at the Good News Fest. Free groceries while stocks last and lots of giveaways like appliances and toys and much more with live music at each venue. 3 days only in South, March 30th at number 4 Recreation Ground, Palo Seco from 4 p.m. In Central, March 31st at Ancient Alley Promenade, Couva, 6 p.m. And in the East, April 1st, Macoya, Savannah, Macoya, 6 p.m. It's the Good News Fest, 3-day family event, March 30th to April 1st. Lots of giveaways after an encouraging word shared.
The best for your baby is at dbesttoys.com. We have the best strollers, car seats, walkers, feeding accessories, playpens, cribs, clothing, and the widest range of brand name toys like Barbie, Hot Wheels, Nerf, LOL, Fisher-Price, Cocomelon, Intex pools, Amazon Fire tablets, HP and Gateway laptops, and the best bikes, scooters, skateboards, and ride-on. Visit us in-store at Southern Main Road, McBean, or shop online now at dbesttoys.com. That's dbesttoys.com. We have the best toys at the best prices.
Mental health can explain the behavior of bullies, but also the impact of those who are bullied.
And you have those individuals who may have, some children have what you call conduct disorders. And a conduct disorder, some of them are like to light fires, kill pets, and all these things. Now, those children could go on into adulthood and be somebody with a personality disorder, as what we call a psychopath or antisocial personality disorder.
Do they pick on or target a specific personality, their victim, or is it across the board?
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Well, it's Tuesdays here on Talking Point, and Tobago is always part of the discussion. And joining us today, we have the president of the Tobago Maxi Taxi Association, Mr. Cloyd Williams, to speak on a situation with a cruise ship agent responsible for getting us the cruise ship arrivals, and the association who is providing a service and is saying that they have not been paid for it. So good morning, Mr. Williams. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear, and good morning.
Good morning, sir.
So first of all, Mr. Williams, could you just give those of the viewers who might not have necessarily read the article where the story initially broke, if you could just explain what it is that happened, how much money does this agent owe you, and what does he owe you for?
All right. Very interesting question. The agent is Trinidad and Tobago Sightseeing Tour, CEO Mr. Charles Cavallo, and he'll be owing us for tours around Tobago. That's to the Boca Reef, Island Pool, Speyside, waterfall, and tours, historic sites. All right, we normally serve the ships when they come in. We work with Mr. Charles Cavallo. He is the agent for the ships, and we have an agreement with him. First of all, COVID will have stopped the operation of the ships, right? That's in March 2020, and he would have owed us from that time, just before the COVID, $103,549.56 for tours and so on. And up to now, he hasn't paid that. We told him at least paying 50%. That's before the beginning of this season, and he hasn't paid. Well, he has paid little. Right now, you know, build up a total of, for this season and the last season, of 387,322.54. And you know, it's unfair to us, all right, because you have these maxis working throughout Tobago. We have been servicing you, and then you are not paying, and this is causing a problem. We thought of pulling the plug, meaning that to pull out, but we know that this can have a ripple effect by pulling out, because probably most of the ships might not come back to Tobago because there's a dispute. So we thought of continuing to work, and Mr. Cavallo is not responding as he ought to in terms of relationship and the payments. All right, and we will have sent letters right now to the Tobago House of Assembly, the Chief Secretary, Mr. Fali Augustus, and the Secretary for Tourism, Ms. Tashia Boris, and we are waiting a response from them in respect to Mr. Cavallo and his payments.
Now, just to clarify, you are the president of the Maxi Taxi Association. Is it that maxis were involved with transporting the cruise ship passengers? Because in the article, Mr. Cavallo did respond to the reporter who was writing the article, and he did say that, well, this type of work is not suitable to taxis. Are taxis also involved, or is it just large maxis being used?
All right, let me just explain. Let me explain that to you. It's mainly the maxis that are involved. The taxis are more involved with the freelance or free lines, that when people come off the ship, they say, okay, I want a taxi to go to whether it be Charlottesville and so on, and they pay, right? But we are contracted, the maxis are contracted with Mr. Cavallo to do tours. All right? Tours meaning, as I mentioned before, Island Tour, you have Speyside Lookout, you have Charlottesville, Boca Reef, and so on. So we are contracted with him. We have an agreement, an arrangement with Mr. Cavallo, at least to pay at least 7 days after work. All right, and these 7 days come to 7 weeks, 7 months, and it's going into years now, you know, which is really ridiculous. I did not listen to his response, but I understand he says that he doesn't owe us that amount of money, but we have all the information that he has owed us. We have the data, we have the ships and everything. So Mr. Cavallo cannot go in the media or should not go in the media and make these statements, right? These are just rubber and cosmetic talks, you know, to look good, you know what I mean?
Well, Mr.
To be
Williams,
honest, maybe it's a blessing in disguise because he's now putting our foot so that we should become our own agents, and we are now looking into that aspect of becoming our own agent because we have the tools in terms of the buses, we have the experience, we are going to have a meeting with the Tobago House of Assembly so they can empower us, become entrepreneurs, becoming our own operator. And secondly, let me just mention to you and the public, when we have approached Mr. Cavallo about this money that he's owing, and he's very rude in his response. And when he says that he can divert his ships to Trinidad, and you know Tobago is tourism. So if you divert your ship to Trinidad, what happens to Tobago? So we are putting our case to the Tobago House of Assembly and probably to the cruise ship agent in Florida. All right? And we cannot wait till Mr. Cavallo divert his ships to Trinidad before we put things in place. So
Mr. Williams, if I may just interrupt you there, sir.
Bringing in our own ship and become entrepreneurs and be responsible for the cruise ship operation in Tobago.
Yeah.
Mr. Cavallo actually responded. He's disputing the figure that you've put forward of $400,000. He's disputing that figure, saying that, yes, I do owe them money, but it's not $400,000. He's actually claiming that you all have an agenda. He further went on to clarify that he's actually not going to pull out of Tobago because it's going to ruin his plans. I think one of the points that I'd like you to respond to, he says the attitude towards business in Tobago needs urgent attention. Now, he didn't elaborate too much specifically, generally on the attitude, but focus more so on the fact that he says, because there are a lot of moving parts and because things are opening up, we cannot rely on just one maxi taxi association to service 45 to 60 days of cruise ship entries into Tobago. How do you respond to this urgent attention needed towards changing the attitude of business in Tobago?
All right, let me respond by saying, of course, there's another provider in Tobago, and ship also, all right? I'm not sure what is the arrangement with Mr. Cavallo and particular provider. All right, I think to be honest, we have a shortage of buses in Tobago. Tobago will have probably under 80 maxis, right? And if you have to service a ship over 2,000, that creates a big challenge. And this is what we are looking at improving or increasing our fleet, right? And this was mentioned in a letter to the Tobago House of Assembly, right? So that is one area we are looking at. Secondly, if you query what he has owed us in terms of not 400,000, it may be right in a sense. The exact figure that Mr. Cavallo owes us is $387,322.54. So it's just a few dollars away from 400,000. So this is not really an issue, all right? So before COVID, he would have owed to the association $103,549.56. Up to now, today's date, Mr. Cavallo would have owed us $283,727.98. We woke a ship yesterday, and that right now will carry us above the 400,000. And he cannot, he's not been honest to come on national radio and TV and say, no, sir, Mr. Cavallo is not honest. And if we are not here for a showdown with him, we are not here to embarrass him. We just want the public to know the figures, where we are, and what can be achieved at this point. All right, so we have the figures here, we have the ships, we have the date, and we have everything here. And he cannot dispute that. And may I mention to you and the public that we are not going to take this thing lightly. Mr. Cavallo will have to pay every cent to the association.
Well,
because,
Mr. Williams,
let
me further ask you whether or not...
we are owing our worker, and Mr. Cavallo must be honest to himself and develop... If Mr. Cavallo is having problems with financial problems, of course he can meet with us. We are not beast, and let's sit down and talk and trash out the thing and say, okay, members, I'm having problems. Could you give me a week or two or a month or something? But you cannot expect us to work. You're owing us and have this kind of standoff relationship.
Well, Mr. Williams, I understand that you've mentioned the relationship between the association and Mr. Cavallo as it stands. But you did mention that there has been a dialogue between, well, not dialogue, but communication between the THA and the association in the form of a letter. When was this letter sent? Has there been any response at all from the Tobago House of Assembly as yet, or any of the secretaries responsible for business on the island?
All right. The letter was written the 3rd of March and was submitted probably about a week after, right? The chief secretary was out of the country. Also, the secretary for tourism was out of the country, Mr. Boris, all right? So, in all fairness to them, I think it has been short notice, and I'm expecting a response maybe within a week or so, all right? So, that's the truth about that whole letter issue, right? Because they weren't here and they couldn't respond, but now they're back. So we are hoping that we can meet with them as early as possible.
Mr. Williams, last question here. Now, you've made the case that money is owed both from before COVID and now. You don't necessarily want this to end. Is it that the Maxi Taxi Association is, at least in the short term, willing to continue providing the service even though you're not being paid? And is it that you're trying to keep doing everything you can to keep the business going?
Yes, and I love the question. I love the question, and I think it's a nice way to end. Yes, we are trying to keep things going. We are trying not to affect the destination. We know it creates employment for a lot of people, the craftsman, the taximan, the man, the reef boat, and so on. So we are trying to hold it together under financial pressure, right? And that's our intention, because some people or some members want to pull out and stop working. We encourage them not to. Let us continue to work at least and see what happens by the end of the season, which is the 17th of April. Mr. Cavallo made a promise to pay the money by the 17th of April. And the secretary would have asked him, maybe I should have mentioned this, to put it in writing. Up to now, Mr. Cavallo have not written that letter of commitment, and he made it plain that he's going to pay us everything by the 17th of April. But it seems as though he's running us down to the end of the season, and it can go a long way, right? Probably I shouldn't say it, but we are looking at other options, maybe legal options. So that's what it is. But as for now, we are trying to hold things together. We have 3 more ships up to the 17th of April. We have 3 ships on the 2nd, the 10th, and the 17th. The 17th is the end of the season. So we are hoping by God's grace that things will work out. Mr. Cavallo will, good sense will prevail so that things can roll off smoothly. But as I said, we are looking at other options, and I end by saying Mr. Cavallo will have to pay the association every cent that he owes us.
Well, I hope that you could get all the money that's owed to you, Mr. Williams. And I also hope, because this is the first time I'm really hearing benefits now for the country, for Tobago, coming out of the cruise ships docking. Because I remember 10 years ago we had cruise ships, but we didn't necessarily see too much benefit. Now that we're starting to see it, I hope that it's not lost because of a pay dispute.
Yeah, I hope so too, and I'm very optimistic about your own situation, and probably within another 3 weeks or so we can have another interview and to let you know all the developments.
Sure. All right, Mr. Williams, thank you very much for joining us on the program this morning. All the very best.
Thank you very much, and God bless.
You too. Have a good day.
Have a good day. That was Cloyd Williams, President of the Tobago Maxi Taxi Association. It's an interesting story that actually...
Well, I'm glad that he's feeling optimistic, but I think we should be fair and welcome Mr. Cavallo to the program to try and answer some of the points put forward there by Mr. Williams. But for now, we have to break for news on the hour, and when we return, we'll open up the phone lines this morning.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Jacine Phillip granted bail for possession of arms, ammunition and marijuana. Finance Minister says no plans to devalue dollar. CSO releases index of retail prices. And internationally, 6 people and shooter dead in Tennessee school shooting. Now for the details. TT Olympic cyclist Jacine Phillip has been granted bail in the sum of $300,000 after being charged with possession of a firearm, 4 rounds of ammunition, and a quantity of marijuana. Phillips appeared before the San Fernando Magistrates Court on Monday. He was arrested during a road traffic exercise along the Sir Solomon Hochoy Highway, Derby, on the weekend. Phillip was ordered to surrender his Trinidad and Tobago and United States of America passports and report to the Superior Police Station every Wednesday. Finance Minister Colm Imbert says there has been no plans to devalue the TT dollar. Speaking during a conference on Monday, the minister rubbished misinformation in the public domain.
Unlike the Federal Reserve, which has a legal mandate to use interest rates to contain inflation, we have no such mandate in Trinidad and Tobago. Our central bank looks at all sorts of things, looks at economic growth, looks at credit to businesses, looks at the rate of unemployment.
The inflation rate for January 2023 was 8.3%. This represents an increase from 5.8%, which was recorded in the previous period. The inflation rate for the comparative period, January 2022, January 2021, was 3.8%. The Central Statistical Office announced the release of the Index of Retail Prices for the month of January 2023. The All Items Index of Retail Prices calculated from the prices collected for the month of January 2023 was 123.6, representing an increase of 0.3 points or 0.3% above the index for December 2022. In international news now, 6 people, 3 of them children, have been killed in a primary school shooting in Nashville. The student victims have been identified as Evelyn Decos, Hallie Scruggs, and William Kinney, all aged 9. The adult victims have been identified as Cynthia Peak, 61, Catherine Coons, 60, and 60-year-old Mike Hill. The shooter was identified as 28-year-old Audrey Hale, who was killed by police. The Covenant School in Nashville is a private Christian school for students aged 3 to 11. President Joe Biden has called on Congress to take action on gun violence. Well, that was your news to the hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
But if we died with Christ, we have faith that we will also live with him. We know that Christ has been raised from the dead, and he will never die again. Death no longer has power over him. He died to sin once and for all with his death, but he lives for God with his life. Join WESN as we explore the death and resurrection of Christ with He is Risen, a perspective from bearing leaders within the Christian faith. He is Risen, starting March 27th, only on WESN, the content capital. Well, thank you very much to Ms. Denise Martin for news on the hour. And, well, that was a very interesting interview, but that line by Mr. Cavallo, the operator of cruise ships, the attitude towards business interview needs urgent attention. That is another talking point in itself.
I mean, but the thing is, though, it's not to say that, you know, all Tobagonians are about the island life and the easygoing life, etc., etc. So I understand that, yes, there's some truth to what he said, but you don't just automatically apply that to everybody on the island to say that they're going to be too easygoing and too lackadaisical and too laissez-faire, etc., etc. And you can go further with it, but...
Like I said, that's why we should welcome him to get his perspective and his business.
I will say this, though. Speaking to Mr. Williams, one of the reasons why it was a phone interview was he had to take children to school this morning. That's what he told me. So he basically, once he was finished with that, took the interview while still in his maxi, right? So a part of me does wonder, look, the island only has so much large transportation providers as large vehicles, right? It's not as though they're going to just have this extra capacity overnight to deal with these cruise ships. And a responsible investor is not going to say, well, let's just get more buses. What happens if the cruise ship business goes away? Then Tobago just have this extra capacity that I can't use. So it's not so easy, but I do think, yes, they do have, this is the Maxi Taxi Association that existed before the cruise ships. That means that they had people to serve before the cruise ship passengers. So it's not so simple on that respect, and I do feel that might be where a lot of the friction comes in.
Well, you can have your say now here on Talking Points. You can join the conversation now. The phone lines are now open, ladies and gentlemen. Call and join us on Talking Point. Share your thoughts and opinions. We only ask that you do not call in at the very final minute of the program. Kindly be mindful of the timing of your contribution. There's no need to go on for 4 minutes, guys. Of course, we will have to cut you if necessary, as we want to give everybody an equal opportunity. But forgive us if we have to. We don't have much of a choice. I mean, we're asking you beforehand. We're being proactive. We're doing our part. And kindly mute your television when calling in on the program. So this morning we spoke. We didn't get to speak too much actually on the state wanting to appeal the $20 million towards the accused, or the former accused in the Vincent Naipaul case, but it's certainly something we'll have to expand on. We have a caller on the line with us from Diego Martin. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, good morning. I'm not going to tie up your one line. Mr. Shah and Mr. Paul, this is caller from Diego Martin.
Good morning.
A quick issue I want to address. And this is, I hope the Prime Minister is listening to me as a citizen too. I want to talk about Nelson Gate issue, and that is critical. Now we are hearing the Prime Minister is saying that he's no hero. Mr. Nelson, the QC at one time at QC now, he says no hero. The Privy Council made a judgment on him as a lawyer with respect to, remember that, the Jones issue and his, the term they use for it is legal guidance for the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister said, okay, he had a legal counsel letter, and he pulled it up, I think. No, because he is now saying the man is not a hero. I am asking the Prime Minister to tell us if he's going to put back that case into the public domain. Because the last time he said it must be collective responsibility and you can't jam Mr. Jones. Now he is saying that legal opinion he got based on what he's saying about Mr. Nelson now. I think he should put everything, the whole board of Petrotin, back into the civil suit. You understand what I'm going? If you was hunky-dory with the man before and he give you a legal opinion and you pull across a case, you pull out Jones' case, now we are basically beating up the man and saying there's no hero. That legal opinion for me is questionable now. And you have to save face. You have to save your face and you have to save the country money. We are scarce on money. So you have to put back that. I don't think it's statute bad because the Privy Council rule on Ken Julian, because for the bamboo business, he said it was outside the timeline and thing, and they say no. Public purse and board of directors, because of taxpayers' money, they have to account.
Okay.
So I am looking forward for him to say, okay, he's going back and put it back into the remit of the court. Let's see if we could get back some of the billions, because plenty billion was spent. Somebody had to eat our food with that. Because we get it, we got scrap iron. I'll go on and I want to tie up your line.
Thank you.
I see. Well, we have two lines, but we give everybody a chance.
We do have a call, though, from Shogunas that's been waiting. Good morning, caller.
Hello, good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Yeah, I see the Minister of Finance said in his speech, he has remained very silent about income tax refunds. I got a statement from Inland Revenue approving that my refund is due, and I'm waiting for that more than 3 years now, and it's not a small sum. So the other thing too is a lot of talk is going on about ammonia, methanol, and urea. Do you know that these plants have outlived their design life, and to bring it back up to current state technology is going to cost as much as building a new plant? And do you know that the countries where these plants originate from, they are now encouraging their investors to come back home so that there's an additional risk in the investors staying here because of the facilitation to go back. The other thing is, at current level environmental standards with air dispersion and air modeling, and so some of these plants will require as much space as the Whole Point leases. And long ago, where one plant could be built up against another plant with the distance between them by TCPD rules, say 10 meters from one another or something like that. That doesn't apply again. So these investors are now operating with a global threat of environmental dispersion and modeling, which is not the concern of anybody in this country. Now,
very quickly,
shipping facilities to export materials from these plants, these shipping facilities are so deteriorated that they only check the money that is coming in from the shipment that is made. and no reinvestment is made to maintain the facility. If you go and see those facilities in Point Lisas to ship these products, because nobody has access to it, you will be amazed to know the condition that these things are in. And you have people who get in mega salaries to maintain these facilities, and they are employed on the basis of facilitation. And
All right,
not,
caller. My sincerest apologies. Time as a factor, but thank you very much for your point. So you can call in another day to continue. Caller on the line with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Yeah, I want to speak about, yesterday I asked the ASP a question about police being the one to charge based on if the other protective services has to hold somebody. And I tying that back in with Lakshmi Dial's interview last week when she talked about the Joint Select Committee with the TTDF. And on that interview, in that TTDF Joint Select Committee meeting, the head of the Chief of Defense Staff said he spoke about the Army doing anti-terrorism exercises in Trinidad and Tobago.
Yeah.
He got specific about that anti-terrorism, and when he was pressed, he said he could not speak about it, but they do a lot of anti-terrorism exercises. And my issue with that statement was he used the fact that he could not speak about it because it was sensitive. And I am saying, I have not seen anybody in the most recent times, in the last 2 years, being charged for any anti-terrorism activities in Trinidad and Tobago. I haven't seen anybody being extradited. So my issue is you remember she said where with the police sometimes they make these excuses where it's under investigation, they can't speak about it.
Yes.
It is similar with the Army. I was so upset when I heard that because I'm saying there has been nothing in the public domain, because if it is that you have held anybody for any anti-terrorism exercise, whether either you hold them, you put them in jail, you put them in prison here, waiting trial, or you extradite them, and there has been nothing in the public domain. So these men have to account, and I would hope that the Joint Select Committees have in camera for people like Mr. Lakshmi Dial and Paul Richards to question these people and to get down to facts. You just can't throw things in the public domain and expect us to take it. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I actually wish that you had the opportunity to sit down on these GSC sometimes. I think it'd be excellent if we sat on these GSC sometimes.
And the thing is, let's just take America for instance. Their military does not work anti-terrorism exercises internally. That's the foreign arm. The FBI, a law enforcement arm, does a lot of its internal work. You might call for assistance, but generally speaking, it's going to be police, right? And that distinction is very important. So I assume our anti-terrorist exercises are not being done on some foreign soil. That would be even worse, because I'm not sure if we have the laws in place to deal with that sort of thing. I do wonder, to what extent now is it that the people who are in these agencies under the Ministry of National Security do not even necessarily understand what it is that I cannot say and what it is on an ethical level that I should say, depending on what it is that I'm doing. Because to some extent, the caller is right. You cannot just operate like a secret kingdom unto yourself to do whatever you want to do with no public accountability.
Well, I can't say it because I cannot elaborate, because I myself don't know what I'm talking about. It just sounds good. 2, I can't say because I have somebody to answer for or answer to after this. 3, I can't say because, well, they put me on the spot. That's how things really go here in TNT. Caller on the line with us from Shogunas. Good morning, caller.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
For once, I halfway agree with the Minister of Finance for not devaluing. Although I agree with not devaluing, the reason for it is we have to find out the cause. of the problem. And the problem in Trinidad and Tobago is total mismanagement by government. If they collect their money and have a proper tax system like we had a very progressive tax system. I have explained this to you. We have destroyed it. So we got hit the lower people and ease up the top people. The top rate of tax used to be 75%. That cut in two. Right? You have the people like Wasa and whatnot, who are the politicians boast we have the lowest price in the world, and they would not tell you what is the policy for subsidies. And this is the cause of our problem. If we manage our economy properly, and our annual administrative reports put up the reasons for it, we wouldn't have this problem. Any questions, gentlemen?
No, but thank you very much.
I
hope you started.
I halfway agree with you as well, Professor.
All right, Professor, have a good day.
Devaluation is not so simple.
Of course it's not so simple.
It's just that he dismisses, the minister dismisses it in a very, as though it is simple, as though the answer is obvious.
When there was a partial adjustment to fuel prices here in CNT, and they were very specific in using that term, partial adjustment, I think it was a couple weeks ago that the Minister of Energy and Energy Industry, Stuart Young, said they were examining fuel prices here in TNT. That does not mean that they were going to revert it to prices before. It could even mean that, you know what, we're actually going to remove the subsidy a bit more.
Yeah.
Right? The thing is, we haven't had any further updates then, given the fact that oil prices and gas prices, they're actually lower than what the Minister of Finance actually used to peg his budget.
Yes.
So the thing is...
Well, he did go into netback pricing without properly explaining to the public what netback pricing is and how it is applied. And I could give a definition, but it's not going to help
I think
everybody.
For me, subsidy has to do with affordability. It's a good point raised by the professor from Chabonas. The issue that I'm having now is, at what point in time do I hear back from the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries on the gas subsidy? At what point in time is the Minister of Finance actually going to address it? And that's just one point.
Yeah.
There's so many other issues as well. Go ahead.
One could argue there are certain things that would require, at the very least, weekly press briefings to update the citizens. What's going on? What's our plan? What's our adjustments to the plan? Because, okay, the plan is we're going to do a partial adjustment to the fuel subsidy, of which I agreed with, right? Of which I agreed with. But I can't fault people to saying, okay, now that the price of oil and gas has gone down, what is the adjustment? Or are we not adjusting? Even if it's just to say that. And I understand that it might seem, oh, is this necessary? Listen, there's a reason why the White House has so many press briefings a month.
If the Office of the Prime Minister Communications Division could do a weekend review every week.
Now, the thing is, some ministries do it, but it does not get the traction. And to some extent, we're not talking about every ministry, every detail. We're talking about big national importance issues.
It's not even a matter of every ministry doing it, because how they do it is a matter of just putting up photos and saying the minister attended this. I really don't care.
That's what I mean.
I don't care if the minister attended a jamboree or a textbook burning ritual or anything like that. I don't care about that.
Or I don't care if a minister, was there to cut your ribbon on a water pipe, on a water stand.
And that was in the weekly review. I honestly do not care about that. What I care about are answers to these questions I'm putting forward. And the Minister of Finance has a responsibility, but he doesn't take any interviews from the media, does he?
Well, no, it's not even about taking interviews. It is telling.
That's the only time he'd probably answer.
It is telling that the communication structure that's supposed to be alongside our political structure is incapable of just giving out these progress reports or these updates. Because, listen, in other countries, you don't always have the prime minister or the minister of this or the minister of that. You'll have basically a public relations person They're to read a statement. They're to take basic questions, or to say, well, I have to get back to you on that because I am not the minister or I am not the prime minister. But we don't even have that mechanism just to give us
Michael Small, let me tell you something.
Updates.
I don't know what communication structure, simply because you have ministers that can't even speak properly.
Which, listen, and one would think that to get elected, you should be able to speak publicly well. But you know what? I could forget that we're a small country. My point is, when you have policy updates to make and say you don't have the time to do it, you're supposed to have a staff. But in this country, communication staff is like a four-letter word that is not to be, and they're never to be let out of the dungeon.
I wonder how many citizens actually read the Gazette. That's something that you should look at on a weekly basis. Caller online with us from San Fernando. Good morning, caller.
Yes, gentlemen. I had another point, but I didn't want to take up time, but I see you all have a little space, so I called
Yeah.
back. With respect to Tobago, that gentleman, the 20 Maxi Taxi Association in Tobago, in the grand scheme of things, in the shipping business, that money being owed to them is a drop. That's about $59,000 US. And I am surprised that Cavallo Shipping have been stringing them out for so long. Let me say this in the shipping business, especially the cruise ship business. A lot of times, in the majority of cases, money is expended up front for expenses by ship owners and ship charterers.
Yes.
In advance. I have been in the shipping industry for a number of years, and that's a normal thing. So to think that that money is being owed to them for so long, I am surprised that, very surprised that they have to come to the public to raise this issue to get their funds. As I said, money is always advanced in 90% of the cases.
But
money
caller,
is advanced.
can I just ask you, following the lockdowns and the easing of restrictions globally, do you think that might have changed? I mean, he's saying this is prior to COVID as well, but do you think that might have changed?
In a lot of cases, no, because remember, if it is I am a supplier. Let's say I am supplying bunker fuels, or I am supplying ship stores. I'm a ship chandler. I have to expend money. If I don't have, you are coming into my jurisdiction. If it is that you don't give me any money, then I can't supply your ship. That is how the shipping industry works, So they expend the money, and in a lot of cases, Keaton, that money, it is very small. Sometimes a ship would come and order fuel, and that fuel would come up to, in US dollars, sometimes $300,000-400,000 US. That money is expended to the agents in advance because nobody wants to put that money out and end out of pocket trying to collect after the fact from the shipping line or from the ship charterers.
I understand, caller.
You understand?
Yeah.
So I am totally surprised. I wish you all could get Mr. Cavallo on for him to explain himself.
Yeah.
And that cheap shot he took at them talking about professionalism, that is a real cheap shot.
Yes. Basically, that's kind of what I felt. To just say you're gonna pick on the small island maxi taxi drivers. I will say this. Anyway. Let me not go into that story. That might be a little bit too much. But I also am curious what Mr.
You have
Cavallo,
15 seconds. Go on.
What Mr. Cavallo meant when he said that he put too much effort into the. I can't remember the exact quote, but he was basically implying that he had a lot invested in Tobago as a cruise ship port, and I would like to know, well, exactly what facilities did you invest in, or facilities did you provide? Because as far as I'm aware, the port of Scarborough existed long before I ever heard of the name of Mr.
You
Cavallo.
mentioned St. Lucia as well, so I'm curious to know their works there. But as previously mentioned, and as the caller from San Fernando further emphasized, it would be to everyone's benefit if Mr. Cavallo made an appearance on the program. So we would try our very best to work that out. But that's basically it for today on Talking Point. I want to thank all our callers. I want to thank Mr. Charles for making the time to appear on Talking Point this morning. And I'd like to thank all our directors. Sean Michael Small, another day in paradise. By the way, do you know that at one point yesterday, I was looking at my car, my dashboard. I was seeing 38 degrees Celsius yesterday.
Really?
Yeah.
Which is ironic because during the day I did not feel warm at all. It's mainly been at night where
You were
I'm like,
inside?
I know, but the ACs weren't on.
Oh, well, that's interesting. But I actually found last night in particular was very hot. It was absolutely still. Very dry and
I think I'm not one of those climate people that's like, we have to do this and we need to just cut everything and stop driving cars and stop electricity. I'm not one of those. But I do think that the weather patterns are changing. I'm just concerned that it really is not anything to do with us and it's changing regardless. And it's something we need to be prepared for. Because I had some of the coolest nights in a long time a few days ago, now into the hottest nights.
Yeah.
So it's something we as two small islands, we're not necessarily out in the middle of the ocean, but we're in deep enough water. It's things that we do have to be aware of and start to think, okay, what are we going to do in case of?
Just imagine at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, it's still 36 degrees Celsius.
I don't even know what that means.
It was blistering heat yesterday, actually, ladies and gentlemen. So just be very careful, stay hydrated, drink your water.
Yes.
Drink lots of water, actually. They say that you should include about a half a litre of water at least. And that's in foreign climates. In Trinidad climate, probably more than that. If you're so lucky to have water in your taps.
Actually, in some of those northern areas during July, August, at least back then it was worse than here. It was worse than here.
England last summer actually was hitting what, 50 degrees?
Yeah, so it's not just warm weather, it's also relatively stable weather. But it seems as though that might be changing. Who knows? Who knows?
And
there was snow in California, next thing you know, we get snow in the Caribbean.
How many miles of seaweed are heading towards Miami and the other Caribbean?
Oy.
All part of it. Anyway,
we gotta figure out the use for that seaweed, you know.
That is, I think so. I think there is potential for that use, but we have to study it more. But anyway,
we have to go. We've been
that's
so
Sean
long.
Michael Small. I'm Keaton Shaw, and this has been Talking Point. Remember, today is a good day to have a good day. We'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.